So now let's talk about Hulu recommendations. Hulu or Hulu picks for August 2020. I want to thank Robert Cheek for being on the show, for helping me out and doing recommendations. I will go to him shortly after we get to my recommendations, but you should check out his channel. His channel is linked in the description down below, and you should subscribe. I realize I wasn't subscribed despite watching several of his videos, and I felt really bad about it. So make sure you subscribe so I don't feel as bad. But Hulu is an interesting streaming service. It doesn't have the on-demand option, I will say, much like Amazon Prime. But one thing it does have that's like Amazon Prime is it has this premium Hulu thing where you have add-ons like Adult Swim, Showtime, things like that. I really don't like that. In fact, Google for a while, when you type in a movie and it would say which streaming service it's on, would just say Hulu and not Hulu Premium. If it says Hulu Premium, this is not one of those. I'm not recommending anything that's on the Hulu Premium thing. I really don't like that it does that. I sort of wish you just have Hulu, and this add-on thing is just confusing, frankly. But whatever. So I wanted to tell you like some cool things to watch on Hulu, which there are several. Now, one thing, and this got canceled, Rob Cheek also brings this up, is High Fidelity. It was shot around my neighborhood here, and recently got canceled. That's really unfortunate. I really like that show. I like its spin on the idea of high fidelity. I never really reviewed it. Maybe I should have. I'm sure that wouldn't have helped things with the ratings, but it's probably killed because of COVID, frankly. But unfortunately, it's ended, but the first season is actually quite good, so check that out. I also, another show that got canceled too soon that's on here is Happy Endings, which is a sitcom I really liked. I really liked that. I don't know how well it ages now, but it's really, really funny. It's a great sitcom. You should check that out, as well as they have the original Powerpuff Girls. Whenever we want to watch Powerpuff Girls with Sophie, we use Hulu to do it. So it's a great way to enjoy the classic Powerpuff Girls. It might have the new Powerpuff Girls on there, but I would never watch it, and how would I ever know if I'm never going to look it up or watch it? And if it is there, I try to ignore it. Anyway, it also has Booksmart. We just talked about Olivia Wilde as a director. If you've never seen Booksmart, Hulu's a great place to do it. And it's a fun enough movie. I don't know if it deserves as much praise as people are getting it, but I enjoy it all the same. I know I never reviewed it, but it's a good movie. It also has Mission Impossible Fallout. It has most of the Mission Impossibles, but that's a really good one, and that's the last one. And if you've never seen it, that's a fun watch. As well as it has most of the Star Trek films. And although I could say just see a Star Trek movie, and I think I've told people to watch this before, but Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan is the best Star Trek movie, and is one of the best sci-fi films of the 1980s. As well as it has Let the Right One In. That is one of my favorite horror films. I don't know why I haven't reviewed that yet, but I should. I really love Let the Right One In. The cinematography is gorgeous. It's a great movie. If you've never seen Let the Right One In, you absolutely should. As well as it has Heathers, one of the great cult movies of the 80s. It might be a little more, I don't know if that ages well, but it is there. and you should check it out. I've always enjoyed Heathers. I grew up watching it a lot. They also have Dora and the Lost City of Gold. It's a real fun movie. I've been wanting to rewatch it with Sophie since she's gone into Dora the Explorer, and I see them advertise it on the Pluto channel a lot. But Dora and the Lost City of Gold is really, really cool. Well, it's not really, really good, but it's a fun enough movie. You know, it's fun for what it is, sort of a Brady Bunch, 90s movie take on Dora the Explorer. I thought it was kind of fun. Directed by James Bobbins. Anyway, he directed The Muppets, and he's pretty good at it. I wanted to bring up Little Woods. The director did Candyman and is going to be doing Captain Marvel 2. I kind of like to promote, when you hear about these directors doing big movies and everyone has opinions on them, you should see those movies. I haven't watched this movie, but if you're going to talk about Captain Marvel 2 ad nauseum and you're excited for Candyman, maybe you should check this out. Will said it was sort of okay. So going off that, hey, but if you're excited for both those movies and you want to see what that director was up to before, it is there on Hulu. As well as they have Creed 2. Not my favorite Rocky movie, sort of a standard Rocky movie, to be honest with you. But if you enjoyed Creed, it's worth a night watch. You'll have a good enough time. They have Three Identical Strangers, which is a pretty good... I really like that documentary quite a lot. I saw it in theaters, actually. I never reviewed it. I have no clue why. But it's about three kids triplets, who were separated and adopted by three separate families, and then they sort of met up with each other later in life and had all this publicity and learned of all these like weird eugenics testing things that were going on with that adoption that they're trying to figure out with nature versus nurture. It is incredibly fascinating, and it is worth a watch. Then we have Robin Hood Men in Tights, which is a classic Mel Brooks I grew up watching a lot. I don't know if that holds up either, but Dave Chappelle's in it, and it's with Mel Brooks. How can you go wrong there? Then you have the Fyre Fraud. That's Hulu's Fyre Festival documentary. I remember they're both kind of the same, so if you're on Hulu and you never watched it, go ahead, have fun. They also have Risky Business, which is early, great Tom Cruise movie. It's a little more moody than you'd expect. It's not just about him, doing the underwear socks dance. It's actually kind of got some mood and interestingness to it. You should actually check out Risky Business. You'll be sort of surprised how moody and weird it is. It is a dumb 80s movie about a kid starting a brothel in his house, but it's a little more existential than you'd expect one of those to be. I recommend Risky Business. It has the Beatles 8 days a week. This is a Ron Howard directed documentary about the Beatles touring years, as well as they have Dave with Kevin Kline and Sigourney Weaver about a normal guy who becomes president, sort of. And I didn't know this, they actually have Grave of the Fireflies on Hulu. So if you watch all the other Ghibli stuff on HBO Max, you watch Grave of the Fireflies on there. They also have Akira. I don't think I need to tell you why Akira is great. If you've never seen Akira, it's on Hulu. Go watch it. And then The Missing Link, which is a movie I like and no one else does. So let's get to Rob's video here. And here we go. And enjoy.
Hello, Movie Crap Live audience, and a big thank you to Jim for having me on. I really appreciate it. It is unbelievable to go from fan to part of the show. I can't even tell you how appreciative I am for you to have me on your usual Saturday night program. I am here on the set of my own movie review show. That's, of course, the Everyman Movie Review. 2 episodes a week, Thursday and 1 day in between. You'll find that at the link down below. And the Everyman Movie Review is infamous, I guess, for talking about not necessarily the quality or the cinematic value of movies, but whether they're enjoyable or not. So this list may be different than the ones that Jim has had in the past. He did give me a bit of Mission Impossible. Maybe that's because I live so close to the Scientology Center and he keeps confusing me for Tom Cruise. But he asked me to pick 5 movies from Hulu, and I am utterly opposed to doing top 5 lists whatsoever. I think you just cannot boil down an entire platform, to 5 things. Maybe by genre, maybe by director, maybe by type, but definitely not just 5 things. But I undertook the adventure. I'm here. We're gonna try to do it. This is the top 5 things you should be watching on Hulu. We'll start at the bottom of the list, and of course that means not necessarily number 5, because I'm gonna try and sneak in some bonus things for you during my list. We'll start out with the honorable mentions. Honorable mentions of this list include Parasite, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and honestly, Hulu has a ton of Christopher Guest movies, and you should be watching all of them if you haven't seen them before. But now let's dive into the list. Number 5, Tangerine. Tangerine is, of course, Sean Baker's first offering. I have a soft spot for this movie because it was shot across a few blocks here in LA where I live. And I don't know, maybe I have a thing for filmmakers who later become famous and going back and watching their early works. I think you could see a lot of the more Sean Baker type filmmaking in this movie that he'll later develop in his career with The Florida Project and everything else he's worked on. But in the end, it comes down to, I used to go to the donut shop that's featured in this movie like every day for coffee and donuts. Number 4 on the list is Sorry to Bother You. Sorry to Bother You was a sleeper from back in 2018. At least it was a sleeper in the circles that I run in. It is a fantastic movie about a weirdly near future San Francisco where a telemarketer learns that he can do a lot more selling using his white voice rather than his normal voice, and some shenanigans happen because of that. It has a star-studded cast starting with Lakeith Stanfield, Tessa Thompson, Stephen Yeun, and Armie Hammer. Number 3 is the Amazing Johnathon documentary. Now, I was hesitant about adding this one in because I was going to try to stick to fiction, like movies that were made, but the reason I'm throwing this in is because this documentary basically also blurs the line between truth fiction documentary and something that might have been written ahead of time. It's a documentary by Ben Berman, and by the time you finish it, you will probably feel like I did, and you'll wonder, was this a scripted movie or did I watch an actual documentary? And what is the truth about The Amazing Johnathon? As a side note, in college in the early aughts, The Amazing Johnathon was on Comedy Central all the time. And if you're around my age, you've probably seen one of his comedy specials, HBO, Comedy Central, otherwise. And it's weird to see somebody who was like a prime part of your youth in the later stages of their life. So it's enjoyable for that as well. And my last 2 choices are kind of weird. They're not gonna be for everybody, but I really enjoyed them and it's my list. So sorry about your luck. Number 2 is The Mandela Effect. I really had a love-hate relationship with this movie. I actually wrote something very similar to this. I moved to LA to be a screenwriter, if you needed to know my backstory. And I wrote something like this, and then I stumbled upon this movie after I finished, and I was like, oh, it's already been done. And it's a good story for those who like to have their noodle canoodled kind of during a movie. It's kind of deep in the science of the Mandela Effect. It's very complicated, and the world itself is unreliable, and we have an unreliable narrator as well. It's starring a lot of people who you won't recognize. The most famous names in it are Robin Lord Taylor and Clark Peters. This was a movie that would probably go to Redbox instead of going to Blockbuster in years past, but I think that those are some of the most entertaining movies that you're gonna find, so I think this is totally worth it. If you've enjoyed this list, I've done reviews on most of the movies that I've talked about in this list. I've actually discovered a few that I'm gonna do reviews about in the future, so make sure you check out the Everyman Movie Review. The link's gonna be down below, and if you'd like, you can follow me on social media at Robert N. Cheek on all your social networks. So without further ado, my number one choice for the movies on Hulu is Palm Springs. I know, super predictable. It's the one that everybody's kind of talking about, but when you're talking about canoodling your noodle, that is exactly what Palm Springs did. I did a review about it just a few days ago, and I love this movie. I have a lot of stuff going on. I do a weekly podcast with my buddy Corey, or the Anthem Podcast, which is available everywhere. I have projects going on like the Everyman Movie Review. We do short films, we do song parodies, and I'm even running for president, for whatever that's worth. So I got a lot going on, but still, I'm going to take the time to sit down and watch this movie again, probably 2 or 3 more times. That's how much I enjoyed it. Palm Springs is, of course, written by Andy Sierra, and it's directed by Max Barbacow. It's starring Andy Samberg, our generation's Adam Sandler, as Niles, and Kristen Milotti, the mother from How I Met Your Mother, as Sarah. It is 2 hours, a little over 2 hours, and I was on the edge of my seat most of the time. I think everybody should enjoy this movie, even if you're not a science tech nerd like I am. I think you'll still find something to love about it. It's Groundhog Day for a new generation. So that's my top 5 movies to watch on Hulu. I'm going to sneak in a little bonus material right now. I always love to do that, and hit you with the top 5 TV shows to check out on there as well. As far as honorable mentions go, you will find all your classic TV shows, everything bingeable, 5-6 seasons with 22 episodes sometimes. So go check those out on Hulu. My number 5 show is Homicide Hunter. Detective Kendra is awesome. You're going to love him as much as I do, I guarantee by the end. Atlanta is number 4. What do I need to say about it? It's Atlanta. You'll love it. I love it already. It's great. Number 3 is the classic Twilight Zone episodes. They have like the 1960s Twilight Zone, which is amazing and everybody should watch. Number 2 is High Fidelity, the show, not the movie. You're going to find that on there. I was drawn in by the show. I couldn't stop watching it. I binged it all the way through. I think you're gonna love it as much as I did. Number 1 is another Canoodle Your Noodle. It's 11/22/63. James Franco in a time travel, space warping, time warping show. It was a sleeper. I didn't hear anyone talking about it when it came out, but I probably watched the whole series through maybe 3 times now. Definitely worth your time. Go and check that out. So Jim, thank you for letting me steal this show. Again, I am super appreciative. I've always been a huge fan of Jim's, and I am really glad that I got to be a participant now in one of the things he's doing. He probably doesn't talk about it a lot, if at all, but I was actually the star of one of his short films from way back when we were both living in New York. Now I'm on the other side of the country. And if he doesn't provide a link for it in the show notes, that's okay. This is where you can find it. It's called Meeting an Old Friend. It's amazing. Worth your time. That's an extra bonus thing on top. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Rob. All right, cool. Canoodling your noodle. That was a phrase never heard before we made that. Thank you very much. Yes, he mentions Meeting an Old Friend. That was 17 years ago, Rob. But we're still talking about it. You should check it out. It was written around the time I made Cletus the Fetus, so expect that kind of writing. Anyway, if you are watching this and looking for something to watch on Hulu, I hope Rob and I helped you be able to do that and give you something to watch, especially if you're still in quarantine. We gave you lots of great titles, and thank you very much for Rob for doing this. Please subscribe to his channel. He does some pretty cool videos, as well as what's going on with Oh the Anthem, which is a channel and podcast they've been on many times. Anyway, I hope we gave you something to watch, and thank you for watching.